Alright, welcome everyone to another Puzzle Rush Survival. Let's get straight into it. Alright, checkmate in one. Also checkmate in one. So for those of you who don't know the way these work, pretty much the puzzles are fairly easy at the start and they progressively get harder. So these ones are usually wins of pieces or checkmates fairly quickly. So in this case, it's checkmate in two. This one's probably rook takes pawn, and then rook takes pawn again. This one's a discovered check, where I check the king and also open up my queen to take his queen, which is quite nice. And a similar thing here, where I take with check and then win the rook. Um, This one seems like a knight check. And if he plays king back, I can play knight check again and win the rook. And that's the only space he can go to, so that's pretty nice. What's this one? This one's just another discovered check, opening up the rook. This one is bishop here, pinning the queen to the king. Okay. This one seems to be something like probably queen check, and then if king here, then I can take the knight. And either way, I can just win the knight, I'm pretty sure. With check, and then I can recapture the bishop afterwards. So that's winning for sure. Alright. Queen check here seems pretty good. He has to block with all these pieces, and because the knight covers this square, which is the only escape square for the king, I can deliver checkmate. Alright. So he took my rook. Guessing it's something like this, and then after wherever the king goes, I can play rook check again, and then queen check, and then after king up here, rook check again. Oh, sorry, rook check again, and then king up here, queen can checkmate. Okay, so that should be checkmate in that sequence. Nice. Okay, so here he's attacking my knight. So what I want to do is deflect the rook and force it to take back, and then I can take the bishop instead. And I can't take the bishop immediately because then it opens up him to get my free rook. So I have to take here first and then take here. And that's a win of a piece. Okay, I'm in check. So I probably have to take with queen. And put him in check. And then wherever he goes, if he goes here, I can play queen check and win the rook. And if he goes here, I can play rook to pin the queen to the king. And that's a puzzle. I'm at 16 at the moment so far. And so 3 wrong and my score ends. So let's keep the streak going. Alright, what is this one here? So he's moved his knight over here to attack my rook. This one seems quite difficult. It's very sneaky. It takes advantage of this pin by playing bishop h6, and after recapturing here, there is no way of stopping checkmate in one. Okay, I think this is the same idea where I play rook d8 and then bishop h6 again, and then after this sequence, there's no way of stopping checkmate in one. Nice. Okay. This one is removing the defender. So after I take the knight and whatever way he recaptures, I can then take the rook, which was originally defended by the knight. And because this is with check, he can't take my rook first. So that's a win of a piece. All right, here I think takes advantage of this pin on the queen, so I can play bishop check here, and if he takes with his rook, I can win the queen. And if he doesn't, then there's a series where I checkmate him. Okay, 20. Nice. Um, Here I'm pretty sure I just push and then play knight here, defending this. So what will happen is I'll push e2, he'll play uh, king f2, then I'll play knight f3, setting up the promotion. Actually, no, that doesn't work because the king can just take the e2 pawn. Hmm. Okay, what would be the right move then? Push pawn after king here. I can then play knight e4 check and forking the rook and the king. That's a nice puzzle for sure. Okay, so here I'm immediately thinking, how can I remove these two pieces away from defending this queen? But that's probably not the best way to go. Yes, it's because this bishop covers this diagonal and the rook covers this one, the king can only stay on these two squares. So if I am able to check him with queen f4, the only way the king is not in checkmate is by him having a blocker, which is queen f6, and then after I play uh, rook f8, the king must take, and then I can win the queen, and if the king goes across, I win the queen anyway. So, nice. That's just a win of a queen for a rook, which is a very good trade. Okay, so what did he take? He took a pawn. Alright. Immediate instincts is probably to play something like 93, but I'm not quite sure what that achieves at the moment. 93, the idea behind it is it attacks the rook and it also creates a pin on this knight. Uh, there could be something better though. Maybe there is something better. Maybe it's something like knight here. Attack the bishop instead. But that's probably not the greatest. If it's knight here because if the rook moves anywhere to these two spaces, continuing to defend this knight, I can then play rook check, and he can't block because the knight covers that, so it would just be check again. And if he plays king up afterwards, I can then play knight check here, and it covers this square, so the king either has to go back or the rook will have to trade, and that's just winning. All right, nice. 23. Let's keep it going. All right, here. Okay, so here's a queen that's infiltrating our backline. So how do we win here? This is a rook sacrifice, rook h2, forcing the king to take it, and then I can play queen g3, and the only move the king has is to come back, and then I can deliver checkmate on h3 because the bishop covers this square, which is quite nice. All right. My immediate instincts is to play rook check and then play rook f8. After the rook check though, if he plays king here, I can still play rook f8 because if he takes the pawn, then I can win the rook and cover the potential threat of promotion. So that just seems like a completely winning tactic. Alright, he took a bishop. Okay. So probably the best plan here is... I mean, I could take the rook, and then after queen takes, I have rook check, and then after queen blocks, I can take with check, and then after king takes, I can push this pawn, or something along those lines. Hmm. Maybe there's something better though. Maybe... Nah, probably not actually. That's probably the best way to go. Unless I can just take this instead. So the material at the moment is so 2 rooks, which my opponent in this puzzle has, uh, 2 minor pieces I have, and 3 minor pieces my opponent has, and a queen I have, and a queen my opponent has. So he's up a minor piece at the moment. He's up a knight. So if I just take it, then it will be even. And usually these puzzles are about finding ways to win in certain positions. So I'm trying to work out what's the best move here. Hmm. Uh, maybe it is taking rook, and then after queen recaptures, rook check, queen here, rook takes. Ah, it's not very obvious. Maybe it's something like push pawn and then bishop here, and then place the bishop on this square, and it's just crushing, despite being down a piece. So let's try it. It may be wrong, but okay, it was just a tick. So we got it right, but I am not 100% sure why that was right. So lucky us. Okay. All right. Hmm. So he played bishop back and is hitting my queen. My immediate instinct once again is to maybe go for taking the pawn or something, or just dropping my queen back here or here. What I could try and do is take the pawn and then take the rook afterwards. Hmm. Maybe that's the best idea. Let's try it. So this seems winning because it actually creates a pin on the bishop, and my bishops are a lot more active. So that's probably the reason why that position is winning. And it allows my queen not to have to fall back all the way. All right, so we're at 27 with no incorrect. None incorrect, rather. Okay, so what do we have here? He dropped his bishop back. Okay. Hmm. Immediately what I see is a pin on the queen with this bishop, so I may want to try and take advantage of that. And I also see this bishop diagonal towards his king. Ah, this one's a really, really nice puzzle. So, it's actually queen sacrifice, which is queen takes c3 with check, and because the bishop covers all of this, he is forced to take, which makes a lot of sense. And then the bishop can come to a3, delivering checkmate, and there are no squares for the king to go to. So that's forced checkmate, which is quite nice. Okay, so here my immediate instinct again is to play something like pawn check, and if king here, then I probably have queen check, and then after rook blocks, I can come in with my bishop with check, which is nice. But if king away, giving up the rook, and suggesting that maybe he can just give a draw. I'm not quite sure what's the best way to go after that. Maybe something like another check. It's not clear to me, this one. It's probably pawn check. And then so giving up the rook he is done. Ah, but then you play queen check again, and wherever the king goes, you can take the rook with check, and then you can save the game from being stalemate. All right, that's a pretty good one. All right, so we have 3 attackers on this pawn, and he also has 3 defenders on that pawn. So it's not rook takes here, for instance. What it could be, however, is to actually push this pawn and add an extra attacker whilst also attacking the queen at the same time. And if something like rook takes, rook can recapture. And then after queen takes, we have queen check here. And if pawn takes, we have queen checkmate here. So that seems right. Let's do it. Nice. We made it to 30. That's good. All right, let's keep going. I think this is a series towards checkmate. Okay, let's see. Knight check, king here. Knight check with double check, so king has to go back. And then knight check here, and then king has to come across here, and then bishop check, and then bishop blocks, and then bishop takes with delivering checkmate. I think that's right. All right, nice. That was a good one for sure. Okay, here he's offering me the option to promote to queen. Is that a good thing in this position? Hmm. Well, of course it's a good thing, but what is he threatening? Is he threatening repetition? Where he plays queen check, and if I come across here, he can just drop his queen back again? Maybe I can play queen check first, stopping any checks, and then promote? I think that's it. Whatever he does, I can then promote, and I'm a queen for a rook, and that's very good stuff. Alright. What could this be? Immediately I'm thinking something like rook check. Obviously he has a threat to checkmate me in 2. So it has to be forcing moves. Let's see. Hmm. Okay, so I think this is maybe something like bishop takes, and then after king takes, knight check, and then after king moves back, for instance, you have the rook check and the queen covers everything, and then if the king comes here, then the queen can deliver checkmate. So let's do it. All right. So it ticked, meaning that we definitely got that right, and we knew the sequence to checkmate anyway. So that's quite nice. All right. What could this one be? Immediately, I'm thinking, why not take the queen? But we can play a queen check first, which is a betweener, a between move. And however he blocks, actually he can block with queen. Never mind. But if he, what did he take at knight? Okay. if he blocks with queen, I don't know, take and then recapture, that probably doesn't work well. If I take like this, I'm attacking here. Maybe that's a good idea. So I take here, I'm attacking here, and I'm attacking here at the same time. I think that's it. So I can just take the knight now. Nice. Alright. This one's already seems quite tough, actually. Because my rook is pinned, so it's not easy to find a way in a position like this. Ah, queen check here, deflecting the pin. So if queen takes, then I can play a rook check, and then after queen blocks, I can take. After rook blocks, I can take, and the king cannot move anywhere, and that should be checkmate. And of course, because the queen is forced to take because the queen is he's in check, and the bishop covers all the other squares for the king to go. That's a really nice puzzle for sure. All right, nice. Okay, what could this one be? I'm immediately thinking a sacrifice, and then maybe something like rook here, attacking both these at the same time. Oh, hold on, this isn't a sacrifice because the knight can just take afterwards. Ah, but if the knight takes afterwards, the rook can be captured. So after here, rook comes down, I can throw in a check, and then after the king moves across, then I can take, and I'm up the exchange. So let's do it. Sweet. All right, that's pretty nice. Okay, so what is this one? This one, so he's pinned my rook. Can I take advantage of that pin for myself? Okay, so immediately what I'm thinking is if this pawn was like not here, then I could just play check, and if this rook wasn't here as well, I could win the queen. So that obviously doesn't work. It has to be slightly more complicated than that. Uh, I'm thinking also something like queen back here, threatening to deliver checkmate in two, and also defending the rook at the same time. And I think probably the only way to stop that is by playing queen here or here. And then after that, hmm, after that, I'm not sure what to do. Uh, After that, I can maybe play something like this and threaten to play here. But that doesn't work too well either because rook can just drop back to a1. So this is quite tough, I must admit. Hmm. Uh, I think this one's probably the hardest so far. Definitely. Maybe it's something to do with this queen blocking out h2, so the king may be able to be checkmated. But it's not easy to spot, for sure. Okay, so queen here, queen comes across to one of these two squares. And then, what's the move? What must I find? Queen here, rook comes all the way back. Then, hmm. Don't think that works very well. But I think we're spending too much time on this one for sure. I want to get to the next ones. I want to try and aim for the 40 mark. 40 is actually quite a good score. So the fact that we've gone 36 with nothing wrong so far is a good sign. But this one is quite difficult. Hmm. Ah, no. My idea was probably to give up my queen and try and deliver checkmate, but I realized once I give up this queen, then the king can come to h2 anyway. So that doesn't work. What does work? Hmm. Maybe I just try it. Let's try it. Okay, so that was the first incorrect one. I'll go back afterwards and see what that one may be. Okay, here I'm immediately thinking something like this to threaten checkmate in one. How does he stop it? He has to play knight here. But then, after knight there, what do I have? Maybe I don't have anything actually after that. Hmm. Yeah, so maybe that idea doesn't work. Ooh, maybe I take here first and then play queen here. Yeah, that seems right. And then after here, rook here, queen check, king here. Oh, sorry. That doesn't even work. Never mind. What am I saying? Yeah, and checkmated one. Nice. Okay, 37. Hmm. This one, there's a sort of a discovery going on here. But also the king is restricted to that position only. So if there's a way to maybe checkmate here, because the knight blocks these squares and the bishop blocks these squares, so all squares are blocked in. But once I move my knight away, then these two squares will be free, whilst also checking. So, hmm. He's also a rook up as well, so material difference is quite large. So there's probably a checkmate here somewhere. I could be missing it. If I play knight check, for instance, or knight move so the rook can check, if the king comes to this square, then I have rook can maybe come down to deliver check, and then after king back here, my knight can come off across and check, and then after king here, my bishop can come here, and it's probably completely winning, but it's not clear. If knight check and then king here, maybe rook check again. Then wherever the king goes, it's difficult to say. That's not easy. Okay, is there a better way to go about doing this? Maybe knight drops back here. No, that doesn't work too well. Hmm. This one's also very, very tough. Um, let's see. Is it maybe just knight picking up the pawn? And then if king moves away here, my knight can hop into here. Then after the king comes back here, my rook can check. King across here. Hmm. The king is just running away in many different circumstances. So this isn't easy at all. Uh, oh, maybe it's knight here. Then if the king comes here, rook check, and then if the king comes here, maybe taking here and then taking here. I think that's the idea in the end, and you end up regaining the material. Okay, so let's try it. Alright, nice. That was correct. Wow, that was a really difficult puzzle, and we got it. Okay, immediately I'm thinking sacrificing, and after the sacrifice, queen check, and then after king across, rook should checkmate. That seems right. Okay, I did not consider this move. But after a move like that, hmm, am I missing something? Rook check, king here, sorry. Uh, hmm. Then this queen check maybe, and then king here, or yeah, king there or here, and then rook check. Wow, this is already really hard. I got the first move right, and then I'm stuck on this move. Ah, maybe it's just rook across, and how is he stopping checkmate? Well, quite easily actually. You can just play rook here. Hmm, that doesn't work. What does work? Rook takes this pawn. King must take, and then queen check. King must play king across, and then rook check. Ah, and then the king must either play here or here. If either way, the queen can come down to check, or the rook can come down to check, and both of them are checkmate. That's a really interesting puzzle. So this is actually checkmate.